if we can't even get intimate in really routine conversations, how are we ever going to really get intimate in the bedroom together?
Yeah.
How are we going to ever feel okay about our bodies and
Mm-hmm.
wear a swimsuit? Or, some
Mm-hmm.
people are just like, don't take my picture. Like they don't ever want to be like revealed.
Unleash the untapped potential within you as we dive fearlessly into the realms of healing, personal growth, self-love, and uncharted territories of the human experience. Join us as we navigate relationships, conquer career and business milestones, and explore the depths of spirituality. This isn't just a podcast, it's a manifesto for the resilient, the ambitious, the soul-searching women and men of today. Grab your coffee and let's dive in with Beyond the Surface.
Welcome back to another episode here on Beyond the Surface. And today I have the privilege of being in conversation with Joyce, and I am so grateful. We were already kind of itching to get recording because we started diving in. It was like, okay, we gotta hit record now. So Joyce, thanks so much for being here. I know everyone's in for a treat to those that are tuning into this episode.
Oh, I'm really glad to be here. And, already we were in conversation before we needed to be in conversation. So I know this is going to be really awesome with you. And so much, your listeners are going to get so much out of this. Yeah, you've got great questions, and from your own experience, of course. Like, how do you get great questions unless you have the experience to know what to ask, right? And
So
we're like,
true.
oh, what was that? Yeah. So, yeah, this is going to be so fun. So thank you very much for
Yeah.
having me as your guest.
Of course. And I always say this, I'd love to give you the space to introduce yourself, because who can talk more about who Joyce is? And I know that's a loaded question, but I know what comes through is going to be true for right now in this moment. But I'd love for you to just share a little bit more about who you are.
Oh, thank you. Gosh, just like, there's all the things that I do, and it's like, well, who is Joyce? And it's like, Joyce, me, is someone that has become a light in the world instead of someone who is hiding in the shadows, fearing rejection and judgment. And nobody cares what I have to say. I don't matter. And now it's like, well, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I don't matter to people, because what matters is what I'm passionate about and what I enjoy doing. And that's like being out here in front of people, with people, just sharing a little bit of my experience and lifting women up. And be the light and let yourself shine. And so, like, when you say, who am I? It's like, well, I've become a bigger version of myself over time as I've healed these limiting beliefs. And we talk about generational patterns, epigenetics, or things that are handed down. And so I discovered what those blocks were, those beliefs, those limitations, and that
Mm-hmm.
they weren't mine, and they were, and the way I was functioning in life was a way to keep myself safe, so I would feel comfortable, so that
Yeah.
I thought I was in control. It was all about control so that I would feel safe. And it's like, oh, is somebody not going to like me? Oh, maybe I'll just do more. So who am I? It's like, I'm a recovering people pleaser. And definitely full of ambition in life, generating and manifesting what I want, and that's serving women on their journey, finding their passion. I didn't know what my passion was. I lived through my family. I lived through the community and their dreams, and now I have my own dreams, and how important that is for women. Well, for everyone, but mainly for
Yeah.
women, because we tend to put our needs aside in order to be seen in a job, perhaps, that,
Mm-hmm.
hey, like, I'm the go-to person in the job, or I'm taking care of the family, or I'm whatever it is with the spouse, or whatever our role is that we think we need to be. So yeah, beyond beyond the surface, who is Joyce? Well, I'm a soul aligned coach. I am a 500 level yoga instructor. I'm a Thai yoga body worker. I'm a Reiki master. I'm an NLP master practitioner. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. It's like, that's what I do. It's not who I am. So this is so important that we identify with who we are, using the skills and other abilities, experience to do what we love doing and do it really well and stand
Mm.
out. It's like that's what this is about. Standing apart. But oh gosh, if you stand apart, it could get uncomfortable. Watch out. And
That's
you might not be
true.
very authentic about it either, because we show up. It's
Hmm.
like who do I need to be, not
Hmm.
who am I.
Yeah, it's such a true question that I find we often kind of spiral into. And one of the things that I'm like remembering is this visual that, again, a coach and a mentor that, I look up to. I remember being in one of her containers, and one of the things that she shared was just how we get to be these beacons, right? We hold up our torch and we kind of like we be the light, right? And we hold a torch and we shed the light on for people and create this pathway for people. And I think there's so much room. That was kind of what was coming through, is just there's so
Mm.
much room for all of us to hold torches, to shine our lights, and be able to step into these roles where we get to be in our fullest expression. Like that's what I thought of when you said, you're a bigger version of you. I'm like, you are now in just like this fullest expression of who you are, right? Like to the true and the core, and unpacking and getting rid of these pieces that don't serve us, or the limiting beliefs that are not necessarily ours, right? And I feel like there's always going to be this aspect where they're not necessarily gone and forever and we never deal with them ever again. I think that's also just part of the human experience, that we are going to have these moments where we're going to kind of dip and we're going to dance in being in our fullest expression, and then also kind of wavering a little bit too. And there's nothing wrong with being in that space. I feel like we were kind of talking about the support aspect, right? Like sometimes it takes having someone hold the torch right in front of you, and then it's like they pass on the torch to you. I'm just having like this visual, right, of
Yeah.
just like, all the women, specifically women, but just all the people and all the human beings who are kind of stepping in and holding torches and passing the torches on to other people, so that more people step into their most authentic self in integrity and all of this, right? Like support becomes such a beautiful thing. And we talk a lot about how we you know, are connected, our lineages, right? And we have all these things that are passed down. But that also happens when we step into coaching containers too, right? When we
Mhm.
invest into coaches and guides, like they're passing the torch on to us in a way too.
Yeah, like we all need mentors, like someone to
Mhm.
aspire to. If all we ever had was, like role models of men were doing this and men were doing that, and we never had a woman
Yeah.
to like, oh, okay, well, women can do this too. Women are, it is possible. Like people rise up, and of course, there's fields where it's male dominated primarily still,
Yeah.
and there's more women rising up into that. But like just you figure out without even going into any particular field, it's like how can we rise up to our fullest potential? And if we have someone that is our avatar, our like that whether it's Brene Brown, Oprah, Maya Angelou, like Marianne, like there's so many women that
Yeah.
have really carved the way for us. And we could say, oh, I want to be like them. I want to do those things, right? And
Hmm.
but if there's a part of us, like there's part of us that wants that,
Hmm.
and we can spend time visualizing and fantasizing about being like them. But if there's a part of us that it's like, well, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not good enough. Well,
Yeah.
who am I? Like, what would I say? Because we can want to be like Oprah Winfrey or other people, and they have their unique way of doing their unique thing.
Yeah.
And we'll never be able to replicate that. We will be able to aspire to something similar to it in our own way if we allow ourselves to be authentic about it, rather than just copying,
Yeah.
because we can write, change words here and there, but if it's not the way we would say it and it would come out naturally, if we were talking right now and I had a script, it's like, okay, I have to say it this way and that way, I would come out more robotic, but I'm not looking at notes, and so it's way more authentic. I'm in alignment with how I see myself and how I feel myself, how I feel about myself, and what I'm saying, so that what's coming out of my mouth is, I'm not doing a whole lot of thinking about it, because it's just it's flowing out. And so when we can get to that place, then that's where we've risen up to that higher place. That's our potential. Just trying to backtrack a little bit. It's like, then when we get to that place, it's like, wow, I'm doing this now. Like I'm speaking on podcast. Oh, I wouldn't have ever done that before. And it's like, okay, I'm real good. I'm good with speaking on podcasts and being a guest of other people. I'm in my comfort zone now, because boy, that wasn't very comfortable a while ago. And then at some point, I'll be challenged in some way. And it's like, oh, why isn't this going so well anymore? So that's because I'm being asked to level up. It's like, now it's time to do your own podcast. Well, then I have to get the speakers. And it's, gosh, like that's way too uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
So we get to those places. And and the cool thing is like, we're always teaching others, unconsciously mostly, how to see us and see our potential and who we're being, and therefore they will treat us accordingly. So it's like there's this mirror or a projection. And it's like, well, Ashley said she wanted me to be on her podcast, but then she just decided to say no. And it's like, well, I guess, whatever, I could make it mean whatever. I could go into my story. But it's just me really not feeling good enough. So we might even create opportunities to sabotage ourselves.
Isn't that so
we're
interesting?
always kind of teaching others to, like, whatever we expect or not expect, we can expect more of that. And that's what we will manifest, because we're not in alignment, we're not in integrity with what we want and the version of ourself that needs to be that person doing the thing that we really want. Like, that might be a lot to take in.
Yeah, that just might be a thing that you repeat. You listen over and over again until it really sinks in.
So if you're listening to the recording, you pause
Yeah.
it and you rewind and you listen to it and you listen to it.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a lot of things that we're going to talk about here, and even already what you've said, that is going to touch us at the unconscious level. It'll be like a little seed planted, and maybe someone doesn't take action today, or maybe it's like somebody might get a little triggered, and it's like, oh, well, that's not me. And it's like, well, just what is, if you're having a reaction, then there's something there for you to take notice of, because it's something within yourself that's being called out. And so it's like, going back to coaching and having mentors and somebody that we can like emulate or rise up to. Before I got into being a coach, I had a very extensive library of personal growth books and books on how the mind works and neuroscience and emotions and all of this wonderful, really, really great science stuff. And I can say stuff because because it's a lot of information. And a lot of the books had exercises and things to do to work on myself. And I'm like, okay, I'll come back to it. Okay, I'll come back to it. I'd finish the book. Okay, what's next? And I would never go back to it. So I learned a lot about myself, some of my patterns. It's like, oh, okay, so that's why I do that. But without going deeper, a little bit with the exercises to kind of really, well, why do I do that? So it would require me to look at myself in a deeper way that I probably didn't want to. That's why I didn't bother taking the time to do the exercises. So a lot of time would go by for me, and I became a soul coach, and then I couldn't just ignore the work because we were coaching each other. And so, it's like, okay, now I'm being taken deeper in an exercise. So it's not like, hey, let's just stop. I don't want to do this because it was part of the training. And so having someone take me almost like by the hand, it's like, it's going to be okay. I'm here with you. We'll just go a little deeper or a lot deeper, depending on where this goes. And that's where the transformation happens. That's where we start to really look at, am I being authentic, or am I being a version of myself that it needs this, needs that? And that could be, needs to be accepted, needs to be validated, needs to be loved, whatever the need is. And we're pretty much unconscious about it until we do the work. And when we no longer need that, have that need, then it's like, oh, wow, that's what that was about.
Yeah. And too, the one thing that I'm thinking about is how, that piece that you just said around how living kind of like a version of yourself, and oftentimes, right, like it's a version of ourselves that maybe, as a version of ourselves that is going to please our parents, a version of ourselves that's going to please our siblings, our partners, like other people. When you live as a version of yourself for so long, I always think it's important to remind ourselves and give ourselves grace, because when you've been doing that for so long, just think there's so much more layers of that you have to unpack. That there's so much more length and time, and how it's been kind of like engraved, in kind of almost just been so deep. And I think about that sometimes with my parents, and it gives me this opportunity to have so much grace with my parents, in the sense that, yeah, just like I think about, let's say, for example, let's use like communication, right? Like them not feeling comfortable to have the hard conversations. Well, they didn't grow up with that. And now they're in their 50s and almost 60s. And that's a lot of years of not knowing how to have the hard conversations, or avoiding the conversations. And so when someone like myself, their daughter comes into their world and in their life and is kind of craving these, it's a little bit of an adjustment for them. And so I think there's just a lot of grace that we have to give ourselves to when we've been operating out of alignment inauthentically for such a long time. And it just takes a little bit more, it takes work regardless to really create that shift in your life, to come back to, who am I? Like sometimes that's not even a question people ask themselves until, who knows what age they are, right? Like I've been asking myself, I think, that question since I was in my like teens, to be honest. Like that question became so prominent. So at 10 years now of constantly asking myself this question, who am I? Who am I? I'm unpacking this. But that's very different as my mom or my dad asking themselves, well, who am I? It's very different. We're at different phases of our lives. We're at different, just different generations. So that's the one thing, is really important to give ourselves some grace when we've been just so it's habitual, right? To unpack that, to rewire those pathways too.
Yeah, it's almost like you're like your parents are in their 50s or whatnot, so they've had like this extensive length of time to really ingrain those patterns and the coding that they
Exactly.
grew up with, and the beliefs that are still present that they keep living out. And we have these patterns of functioning and expressing ourselves or not expressing ourselves, and then we have kids, right? and then the kids are almost like a mirror. And it's like as parents, we domesticate our children just like our animals. It's like, well, no, we do it this way. This is how
Yeah.
it's done. This is how we talk to each other. It's like, I don't know, this example is coming to mind. It's like, say you're a little kid, and you did something and you didn't know it was wrong, and your parent says, tell them you're sorry, and the kid's like, what? Like, I don't like, why, what did I do, right? why
Yeah.
why why I'm not sorry. I don't know what I did. You did this and you did this and you did this, and you tell them you're sorry. Okay, well, it's almost like a command. I'll tell them I'm sorry. I don't mean it. I don't really understand why I'm saying I'm sorry, because I don't think I did anything wrong, because I was just just being a kid, right? And
Yeah.
then we start getting programmed right away. And then our parents programming, that set epigenetics, the generational stuff gets handed down, and then we
Hmm.
just automatically, treat other people the same way that we were treated. And I love that you're saying, like, you started to notice in your teens is like, who am I? And you're already getting it, and you're already recoding that program. And it's like, well, no, I'm not going to do it that way anymore. That, they would call it rebellion, being rebellious. And
Hmm.
it's like, of course we're going to be rebellious, because we have our own mind, we have our own way of viewing the world. And of course it's going to be different. There's going to be similarities to our parents, but it's going to be different. And so I have a few years on you, and I waited, or I was very unaware uh, that there was something I could do about my life, or the way I was showing up, the way I was parenting. I have three grown girls, and but not knowing. Like, I read all the books about parenting, and it's like, okay, do this, do that, and but it's like, well, why isn't this working out the way I would want it to? Like, I'm
Yeah.
doing what the books say to do. And it's, well,
Yeah.
it's my stuff. It's like our businesses. If we're whatever our business is going to be, and usually we
Hmm.
create a business not necessarily just for money, because there's
Hmm.
that part, because we need money, or we love making money. I have a quiz, actually, a soulpreneur quiz, and there's like three aspects. So some people are really driven by money, some people are driven by just the creative part, and some people are more driven about collaborations. So it's like, these are
Mm.
our values, and if we don't know what it is that we really value, then that domestication takes over and programs us to like, this is what you're supposed to value, right? And so
Mm.
so when we become entrepreneurs, people will, like, well, you're never going to make any money at that, or who do you think you are? Like, you're a coach. Like, you really need to become you have to go back to school and get your psychology degree, or you have to become a social
Hmm.
worker, or you have to do this, and this to qualify as a coach.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I looked at that and I'm like, I don't want to spend another 10 years going back to school for this. I just want to go and coach people. I want the skills, I want the knowledge, because I'm already coaching people, but I feel so inadequate with what I
Hmm.
didn't know. It's like, I don't know how to really help people. Like, I'm a good listener, and people feel really comfortable expressing themselves, but the biggest thing I could do is like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm
Right.
so sorry about that. And hey, can I do anything? That was the extent of the help, but I just felt so ill prepared. And so that's why I really wanted to become a coach. Is like, give me the tools to help people, like, with, like, they're already coming to me, and I want to be able to do something, right? So
Yeah.
whether it's someone who's a healer, an artist, creatives in some way, and what you're doing, like, we could all be doing something similar, but we're all going to do it in a very unique way. And that's where
Hmm.
the authenticness comes in. And if we feel that we can be authentic, and we don't have to copy what someone else is doing in order to get it right. As
Yeah.
if there's only one way to coach, if there's only one way to do this or that. And it's like, no, we need all of the different variations of that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like, just allowing people, or not even allowing, it's those that come into our lives, that we receive them as a gift. Because it's like, okay, we're comfortable, but we don't really want to be comfortable anymore, but we're not really willing to take a
Yeah.
risk to challenge that comfort only a certain amount. There's a book called oh gosh, it'll come to me anyways. So the concept is we have these limits, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Big Leap, I think it's called. So we have these limits, and this is my comfort zone, and I'll have this like range between the comfort zone. So I'll go up a little bit higher and I'll go little bit lower. So let's say this is money or happiness or love, right? So this is like my benchmark. This is where I start. And then it's like, oh, like, I'm feeling a lot more love, and oh, I really feel this person loves me a lot. And then, but we're not used to feeling that much love. We're not used to having that much success in our business. We're not, like, whatever it is, like, because this is our base point. So we'll go up only so high. And then when we bump up against too much distance away, we'll bring ourselves back down, or we'll go back down halfway, or we'll even drop below. So we're always functioning within this range until we can shift it. And then, like I said earlier, I have NLP, hypnosis, and embodiment training. And that's where we can really start rewiring all that coding that's been done, all those beliefs about ourselves, and limits that we impose on ourselves, or the limits that we feel others are imposing on us, or that even society puts on us. So, because we can see affirmations, we can manifest, we can meditate, but if there's a deeper part of us unconsciously that doesn't believe that's possible, you'll never manifest that thing. Or you might, like, again, bump it up a little bit, but we'll never reach that full potential that we are really supposed to be at. That light, you talked about, being the torch, the whatever, it's like, be a lighthouse, a torch of some kind. And we become that beacon that just, like the lighthouse that goes around and around, and we shine our light everywhere. We'll never reach that height to get to the lighthouse where we're shining our light, because we'll always just sort of have a little dim light. I get them. Think of a dimmer switch. We'll only ever put it up a little bit. We'll never really put it full on, right?
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, that's too scary. Everyone will see me then.
And that's a real thing, right? Like, that's such a real thing that I feel like a lot of people don't really sit with, of that piece around feeling safe to be seen. That is such a piece that, when we talk about those layers that are underneath, that is definitely one of those things that comes up where you're not really, I always find it interesting when people are kind of like, I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking about this because of the time in my life. I'm getting married in September, so I think about a lot of people, and there's other people in my life that are also getting married, and it's that center of attention, right? Like, makes them feel a little uncomfortable, and I understand that, and part of me is just like, where is this like disconnect? Like, where is this fear to be able to, for a moment, for a day? We're not talking about forever. We're talking about one day, one evening where all those eyes are on you. And like, what is it that makes us feel uncomfortable to be seen, and to have the, to just be that center of attention? And I feel like that comes into, when we talk about business, it's that plays when, if you see where you're having this hesitation to talk about your offerings, to talk about the work that you do, why are you afraid to feel seen? And where is that coming from? These are the, the questions where we talked about, you kind of mentioned about like these signals, right? Like, they're just these little notifications when you're feeling uncomfortable, when something is being triggered. And sometimes we don't know, is this a trigger, right? Like, that's not necessarily a conversation we may necessarily use with ourselves. But the conversation around like, ooh, why am I feeling this right now? Why is this coming up? Why am I feeling this type of emotion? Like, why is this bringing up some anger here? Why is this making me feel a little uncomfortable? These are all just questions that you can ask yourself. And this is where that inner work begins. This is that like surface where you start to see beyond the surface of who you are and really being able to get to that core of the patterns, the beliefs, the thoughts, all of these patterns that have been kind of placed on top of you, you start to be able to unpack them and see what's beneath this, what's beneath that, what's beneath this. And this is where this beautiful inner work, and then you get to the core of who you are. And then you get to live from that place. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm curious too, like what's
Authentically.
it exactly. And I'm curious, like what's been the thing that supported you, and tell me if this is your experience. I feel like this is my truth, that I think sometimes we dance in the authenticity, like in the sense of you are who you are, and you are that self, like you're authentically you. And I feel like sometimes we have our moments where we're not necessarily, maybe it's like the person that you're around, maybe surround certain groups, you could be 100% your authentic self. And then maybe around other people, you kind of feel like, oof, I can only be like 50% of my authentic self. But for you, and becoming and being in this space of being your authentic self, what is it that really supports you to be able to step in and be your authentic self?
Yeah, it's I found that as I was going through my different trainings, we were all growing. We're all shedding a part of our identity that wasn't serving us, that was holding us back. And so, since we were all sort of in it together, practicing all the different exercises and things that will release our blocks, and it was like you get to that place where you're going to be very vulnerable, and it's like, okay, this is my partner, and I'm going to have to reveal this little part of myself. And then it's like, are they going to judge me? How are they going to think of me this way or that way? And it's like, okay, we're doing the exercise. It'll be okay. Like it just like, don't, so
Mm-hmm.
going, like dipping my toe in the water of going down that little vulnerability lane
Mm-hmm.
really helped me. And it did it in baby steps. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, that was hard. Like at the end of it, it was like, oh my gosh, I did that, and I said that, and now they know this about me. Oh my gosh, like they like my I really didn't have any deep dark secrets. It was just all of these insecurities I had about myself. It's like
Mm,
they're going to think less of me. They're going to judge
yeah.
me. I'm going to be whatever in their eyes, right? It's like it was all about not how do I see myself. It's like how do other people see me? Am I okay?
Mm-hmm.
Will I still be okay afterwards after they know this about me? And so being in those communities, because it wasn't just a classroom where we're learning different skills, or exercises, how to take other people through it later on. This was like our family. It became our family because we exposed, we took off our masks in front of each other, and it's almost like, this is who I am. Is that okay? It's
Yeah.
like, am I still okay? And then at the end, there's this appreciation and respect and admiration for each other. Like, wow, like you really just shared something very personal and deep with me, and I'm very thankful for what I learned from you. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
what? Like, you learned that from me? Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And so having those people around us that instead of taking and needing all the time and telling us that we're wrong and telling us how we should do things, it's just let us find those people that you feel you can be yourself. And if you don't know
Mm,
who that what that is, because you've been this other version of yourself for so long, just know that it could take some time, to
yeah.
just little baby steps, a little sharing here, a little vulnerability there. And um, I did, if people are familiar with Landmark, it
Mm-hmm.
was one of the first personal growth courses I did. And they have all of these extra seminars you can do. And one of them was this uh, sex and intimacy
Wow.
seminar. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I was just, I'm not going to do that. Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to anyone about that. Oh my gosh, that is like way too intimate. That's way too vulnerable. And I was really, really surprised what it really was. And if it's like, well, what is it? What is it? You might be saying. Yeah. And what I got from it was that all of our relationships are intimate, whether it's with friends, with family, lovers, I don't even pets, like, every, even, okay, especially ourselves.
Yes.
All of our relationships are intimate. And what we do is we put up the barrier so that we're not intimate. We don't ever let a vulnerable side of us be seen or expressed. And so we never go to the deeper connection with another person, that deeper knowing of ourselves. And that's where the authenticity comes in. It's like we never get to the place of really knowing who we are, because we're so fearful of that intimacy. Like they'll know that I'm uncomfortable with this. They'll know that maybe I don't like this or that. Like, I don't know. I can, food can be like the simplest thing. Like, you go to a restaurant and it's like, where would you like to go? Anywhere you want, right? And it's like, okay, let's go to McDonald's, and like you just like, oh my, like whatever it could be, but it would be very too intimate to express a disagreement in that, or you could call it a disagreement, or it would be too intimate to say, how do you feel about this? I would prefer that, because that's being authentic.
Truth.
That's like sharing a part of yourself that somebody could what are they going to do? They'll get angry at you and just like, no, I don't want to, what could possibly happen? But the unknown is so scary that we're not willing to go there. We're not willing to get intimate. And I use just like, a restaurant or something, because what about if you're with a partner and you have different sex drives? And, it's like, that is a very intimate place. So if we're that sex and intimacy seminar, if we can't even get intimate in really routine conversations, how are we ever going to really get intimate in the bedroom together?
Yeah.
How are we going to ever feel okay about our bodies and wear a swimsuit? Or, some people are just like, don't take my picture. Like they don't ever want to be like revealed. Like, oh my gosh, like it's like, what is it about that? I love what you said about getting married and walking down the aisle and all those eyes are on you, right?
Yeah.
Is one of the things that I've come to work with women on, is speaking confidently, and it goes back to that intimacy. Like, speaking confidently is not just knowing what you're talking about and you've studied the script, and all that. It comes from deep within, like feeling comfortable with yourself, being authentic, and integrity. Integrity is another big one with how you feel about yourself and how you act and you show up, and what you present to the world and what you say you're going to do. You're in integrity with that.
Yeah. I think one of the things I think about too,
then it does something inside of us. It really it shuts off a part of us if we don't ever fulfill that quest that we have.
Yeah. One of the things I from hearing you too is like this topic about intimacy is also like our definition of intimacy, and just starting there. What do you like? How do you see, what does intimacy mean to you? And oftentimes, I think a lot of the association, because even too, you talk about the seminar, right? I would have heard that seminar and been like, I'm uncomfortable,
Yeah.
And actually one of my mentors, she hosts cacao ceremonies where she has a woman come in, and I don't want to mess this up, but essentially there's just this part in the ceremony where you are invited to take off your bra and to massage your breasts. And that is a very intimate thing to experience, especially in circle. And, I haven't experienced it myself. I'm not there at that point, but it's really understanding and really just sitting with what is my take, what's my perspective, what do I believe about intimacy, what does this mean to me. And we have this connection where it's just like the bedroom and it's just that. But I love that you kind of talk about how, I love what you said, how intimacy is just in all of our relationships. And this piece around too about vulnerability, right? Like vulnerability, it's this piece around speaking our truth. And one of the books that I read at the very beginning of my journey that changed my life was The Four Agreements. And
Oh my gosh. Mine too.
I swear, oh my gosh, this book, we could have a whole conversation just on
Yeah.
that book.
Well, 4 conversations because of the 4 agreements.
Yes, that's true. That's true. But one of the things that it really shifted in me, where it's given me so much permission to be vulnerable and to speak my truth. And those two things, I feel like from my experience and my journey, that's what I equate to when I think about my authentic self. It's speaking my truth. It's being able to speak my truth. And one of the things that's kind of supported me and given me permission through this book is just how, you know, our truth is ours. And ultimately, how people respond and react to our truth is not about us, right? Like we're so ego driven as human beings, and we think that everything is about us, and it's not, right? And that was one of the things, I talk very openly about my journey. I don't say my relationship anymore. But it's more so my journey with my dad. And I love to talk about it, and I love to kind of scream it from the rooftops, because it's just been one of those experiences that have taught me so much. And at first, so I published my book in 2017. I was 24, so I was very just like coming out of this whole beautiful experience with my dad, and it unlocked so much in me. And I never thought, as I wrote this book, to be honest, I never really thought until afterwards, like, oh my gosh, like, what is he going to think about me writing this book and the first chapter being about him? And I didn't think about it until afterwards. And to be honest,
Good thing.
I don't, right? And it is a good thing, because I think I knew my intention behind the chapter specifically. I knew my intention, and I knew it was coming from a place of love. So for me, there was no shame. There was nothing to hide. There was nothing to be nervous about, because I was speaking from my truth, from my perspective. And we all have that. Like, who are we to kind of want and desire to be able to speak our truth and to be our authentic selves, and deny other people and tell other people that they can't be their authentic self, right? Because it might trigger us. And I feel like sometimes that's what happens too, right? In relationships, it's, I want to be able to speak myself and express myself, but we also have to give that exact same permission to those that we're in relationships with. And that can be hard, right? Like, that can be hard to navigate when we kind of take it personally. And that's, one of the things in the Four Agreements, right? Is just not taking things personally. And that is what really set me free in so many ways. Like, I was just like, wait a second, like, none of this is like what people are experiencing, what people are saying, how people are reacting. It has nothing to do with me. And at the time, I was, when I was reading this book, I was in customer service. My world changed.
Perfect.
Right? Like, I was like, people screaming at me on the phone. I was like, it's not about me. It's not
Have
about
a nice
me.
day.
Yeah. Honestly,
I mean
it was right. But it's just such a freeing. That book is so offered so many beautiful lessons and was so freeing. But anyways, to bring it back, I find that vulnerability and being able to speak our truth is such a big part of being our authentic self. At least in my own experience.
Yeah, vulnerability, if we all have so many emotions, and if we're not allowing those emotions to be expressed, because it's very vulnerable, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's, especially if you're mad or you're sad, um, or you're upset, you're frustrated, like what degree of the emotion is socially acceptable before somebody
Right.
looks at you like you have three eyes, right? or or says something else less impressive.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like it's not okay for us to have our feelings, because maybe we feel we're responsible for someone else's emotional state. We got to take care of
Mm-hmm.
somebody else. So I can't have my feelings, because if I have my feelings, they might feel this. And then I don't want them to feel that, because that means that I have to take care of them and I can't take care of me anymore. You know that person that flies off the handle after you, like, so I don't like this. And all of a sudden it becomes all about them. And it's like, well, I can't even tell you that I don't like something. and
Exactly. Yeah.
so when we are, one of the things you're saying is when we give our power away, when we don't feel we can express ourselves, and
Mm-hmm.
um, and that gets in. And sorry, I'll go a little deeper in a moment. So like we're blocking our energy, we're blocking who we are, and when we are so focused on whatever it is outside of ourselves, so that we can feel a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
then we are also blocking a part of ourselves that we'll call it the intuition, that embodied part of us that just knows when something's not right,
Yeah.
when we do want to do something or we don't want to do something. Whether it's like we want to start a business, it's like somebody tells us, well, you could do this and you could do that, and you're like, no, no, and it's like, but they want you to make a decision based on the three options they gave you, but it's like, okay, well, I'll just none of the three really speak to me, don't give me any energy, but okay, I guess I have to pick one, right? But
Yeah.
that none of them are right for you, so you go ahead, because the emotional part, oh, I don't want to upset them, I guess I better, they did give me three good options, but I'll pick them and start somewhere. But this intuition that we have, this, it's like our internal compass
Mm-hmm.
is not pointing north. It's like, the compass is spinning, like trying to find north all the time,
Yep.
because we've confused it because we're operating in our heads and outside of ourselves. We're constantly getting triggered because we're very, very much in the experience of what's happening. And in an NLP, it's called being associated. So like,
Mm-hmm.
most people will have had an experience where they're so in it, they just like kind of become a part of whatever's going on, unable to extract themselves from
Mm-hmm.
whatever's happening. And that would be disassociating. So whenever we can disassociate, we visualize, or like we have the perception of the experience happening outside of ourselves, rather than us being immersed and engulfed and almost consumed by it, because sometimes
Mm-hmm.
there's experiences that can overwhelm us,
Yeah.
or they start off small, but then they escalate quickly, and we can't even get out, like we're just like velcroed to like whatever's going on. And
Yeah.
so whenever we can step away and observe, like an outsider, what's going on, almost like you observe yourself interacting with somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
then that intuition part can come on board, that inner compass, you can tap into it. And when we are in alignment and empowered, then we can say no with authority, like I'm rather than I'm not going to do that, because that still gives
Mm-hmm.
the power away. It's like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to choose my own three options, what I want to
Mm.
follow. Thank you for your suggestions. And if they have a problem with that, it's like, what, aren't they good enough? It's like, well, they might be okay for you, and because they came from your ideas, and they just don't resonate with me. So again,
Yeah.
the people pleaser would be, oh, now I have to like take care of them, right? Because now their feelings are hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
Yep.
okay, let's let them have their own experience and be uncomfortable in that. And if they're offended, like you said, like, they took it personally, that's one of the 4 agreements, is like, if they took it personally that one of their 3 suggestions doesn't resonate with you, then it's just like, let them have that experience. Even for children,
Yeah.
we try to rescue children and friends from
Mm-hmm.
having an experience. Like, we gotta go in, we gotta save them, be the super friend, the super
Yep.
mom, whatever. Or even our parents, right? We gotta, like, because they're getting older or something, it's like, oh, I gotta go take care of them, and whatever it is that we do. So we it's so important that we are in touch with that intuitive side of ourselves, because it knows it goes beyond that ego.
Yeah.
It's the deeper part that's like, it's like our radar is
Mm-hmm.
already sensing what we need to do, or what we need to say or not say, whatever our choice is. Yeah, there's like a lot of the
Yeah.
work that I do with people. It's about getting into your body and building that trust. Having trust in yourself. It's like, I don't know. Maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. And we're thinking of the pros and the cons. It's like, just
Mm-hmm.
ask your body. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, what does my body know, right? Well, your body knows everything. That maybe you've heard of the book, The Body Keeps the Score. And
I
it's
feel
like,
like I've heard of it. I don't think I've read it, but it just
um,
resonates too.
yeah,
I'm very big into like human design, and that's one of the things that
mm,
I learned was, how we're kind of meant to make decisions. And once I kind of played with that, I was like, this makes so much sense, and it doesn't come from here ever, ever. It doesn't come from here.
right,
It
right.
all comes from like my trusting my gut is literally true. It's true, and the thing is it's not true from the lens of human design. It's not true for everyone. Some people it's kind of like follow your intuition, you're going to hear this like little nudge. Other people it's going to be like this visceral like response, right? For me that's very, I can be like yep, and I can also be a hard not a chance. Right? So understanding, and that's the thing that was coming through was just we can't really like be able to trust ourselves and hear our intuition, whatever that looks like, when there's so much noise and
Right.
when there's so much going on. And when I say there's so much going on, I mean like the amount of that you're consuming, right? Like the amount of consumption that's happening. And when you're just constantly bringing in information and being bombarded and seeing what other people are doing, that's noise. That's noise. And it's when you come to yourself and are with yourself and can sit with that, that's where more, that trust and that intuition, you can hear it. And I feel like that's like right now where I'm at with my life is just very less finding the answers out there and very much like, all right, what is this right now? With myself, with my guides, we're building this connection, we're building this relationship, and it's guiding me, and it feels so aligned and so authentic. And so when I make a choice or when I take an action, when I put something out, when it comes to business, it feels really good because I know it's coming from this depth, this place that's my own internal compass, rather than me trying to kind of put a mask on and do it somebody else's way.
Yeah, you trust that intuition. Like, you trust that internal part of you, that internal compass that
Mm-hmm.
knows. Like with the human design, you're saying, like, depending on the, 4 designs, 5 designs. I'm a
5.
manifester, and
Oh, okay.
like, we learn how to read the signals,
Yeah.
in human design, like that were, that were given to us. And that's like
Mm-hmm.
in relationships, whether it's like with clients, whoever you're serving, or in partnerships, we're just all so different. And if we just allow ourselves to trust that inner knowing, or, hey, I need some time to I call it my emotional wave. And not that I even announce it. It's like, I'm not going to make a decision until I have a solid yes. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's a day, sometimes it's weeks. It just depends.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're all kind of different, and generators, it's like, well, how do you feel about that? They don't know what to do with that. It's like, do you feel this or do you feel that? They need that yes or no.
Yeah.
Input. So yeah, we're all programmed differently, and that's what's so beautiful about NLP, neuro linguistic programming, because this is
Mm-hmm.
how our neurology is wired, and then
Yeah.
therefore we have a language coded in ourselves that, and then the programming, so we can learn what our way, just like the way that we operate, and we
Mm-hmm.
can learn about the patterns that are getting in the way of how we really operate. And then we can understand other people and not take
Yes.
it personally. Don't make assumptions. These are the four agreements. What couple of the four agreements? Don't make assumptions, because what we do with our clients, when our clients say this or they don't say that, or it's like it's like, hey, I've got this product, or I have this course, and somebody says no, and it's like all of a sudden you're taking it personally, and it's like, well, knowing that human design, how to interact with them with their human design, knowing the language that they're
Mm-hmm.
speaking through, like the NLP part, because some people are auditory or visual or kinesthetic, and it's almost like if you're not talking their language, one of those three, then you kind of miss each other. Like you're
Yep.
saying the same thing, but you're like, you say that and you say that, and you never like really connect. Um,
Exactly.
so if you're not aligned within yourself with what you want and how you believe yourself to be, if those aren't in
Mm-hmm.
agreement, if they're not in alignment, then we don't have that ability to be authentic, because it's not safe.
Yeah.
We are not in integrity because we say we want one thing, but then we do other things, and then we stop, again, trusting our intuition. And so again, it's all mixed in together. We can even throw in some Ayurveda with
That's
the
very true.
doshas.
Yeah.
If for people who are familiar with the Vata Pitta Kapha, yeah, there's just so many different avenues, that different ways,
Yeah.
enneagrams, and just
Yes.
so many different ways of understanding our true nature, not the
Mm-hmm.
coded, programmed part of us that keeps showing up. And even if we rewire and reprogram certain parts of our beliefs, we'll get to that. We'll be comfortable for a little while, and then something else will happen that, okay, it's time to go a little deeper in some other areas of life now,
Mm-hmm.
because you're not being
Exactly.
authentic. Okay, you went back
Yeah.
into an old pattern, not necessarily one that you had cleared out. We'll call it clearing out an old pattern, but now a different pattern is going to show up to work on, because, okay, you're not being authentic here, you're not being in integrity here, look, you stop trusting your intuition again, like, what's that about?
Yeah, exactly.
So it
And
just it
that's
just keeps
like
cycling, it just keeps cycling, and that's what,
exactly.
like the coach is good for, because it's like, okay, like I felt like I was kind of coasting a little bit, but I've got that brick
Yeah.
wall coming up again, and it's time to kind of do a little more deep diving.
And that's like, and that's when we talk about, the healing or the work never ends. And that's kind of like,
Yeah.
I feel like when you dive into this world, let's call it personal development, the world of personal development, personal growth, whatever you want to call it. This is like, an unspoken agreement that you make with yourself. This promise to yourself that you're going to continue to do this work, and it's not going to end. And that's not to say that it's not to sound daunting in the sense of like, ugh, what do you mean I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life? I see that in a whole other lens of that is the most exciting part about this journey of life and coming to earth school that we've all agreed to. That's how I look at it in terms of the spiritual lens. I feel like, you've made this choice to come to Earth School. You've made the choice to forget. And now the journey is remembering. And you're going to remember one little piece. And then, like we're saying, the cycle, it's going to call you to remember another piece and another layer of who you are. And it just keeps coming and it keeps coming. And the remembering continues. And I just see it as the most fun journey to be on. And when you can embrace the fun and the play, it becomes easier. And you know what I mean? Like in just like, putting one foot in front of the other, it becomes fun. It becomes fun to kind of like play this game where it, instead of like, oh, why is it that I always do this to myself? Like this work, I think my angle and my lens is that this work gets to be fun and playful. And it doesn't always have to be where you are having a breakdown in the middle of your, of your living room and everything's just crumbling. I don't feel like it always has to be that. It gets to be playful when you are on this journey where you are going through this remembering, this self-discovery. It gets to be playful and it gets to be fun. And when you can embrace that, everything gets to be so much more fun, and you're just kind of like, oh, there I am again. There's my human side. There's my human. Didn't trust myself in that moment. I'm going to remember to trust myself again, instead of shaming ourselves or judging ourselves in these moments, we get to kind of play with it and just be gentle on ourselves too at the same time. Wow. I feel like we've covered so many different amazing pieces in this conversation. And I'm so grateful. And, the one last question that I want to ask you and I want to sit with, and I never forget to ask people that come on, is if you could kind of distill your life's journey into one piece of advice, what would that be?
It's like, one piece of advice is you're never going to get it perfect. You're never going to get it right. And just kind of get over yourself. Get over yourself with aiming for that perfection. And, trust your soul's guidance, that inner compass. That it's going to lead you. It's going to point to your true north, that path that you're meant to be on, not the one maybe you chose or somebody chose for you, but it's going to point to your path that you're supposed to be on. And there'll be some hills and valleys along the way, and you may stumble and again, not getting it perfect because, and it's like, just be curious, be in that adventurous spirit, knowing that there's so much that you're going to learn and encounter along the way. That's going to build towards whatever you need is needed to wherever you're going. And wherever you're going is just like a stopping point. It's not the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the journey, the ride. Like we're on the ride of your life. And you're going somewhere because you're trusting your intuition. And you know, like, okay, I can't see around the bend. Like I'm in the woods on a path and there's all these twists and turns and you may not know what's ahead, and that's okay. Because you're being led, you're trusting that intuition, and you're also on this journey. You're discovering more and more about yourself, like that authentic part about yourself. You're trusting yourself. Like, hey, I think I just need to pause here for a little bit. That intuition, and again, you're still moving towards where that path that you're on. You're still on that path, but just know that there's going to be times you're going to stop. You don't know why, you just want to stop, but you do. Mm-hmm. And maybe you're resting or you stop and somebody just happens to come along that you were meant to interact with to help you grow in some way. And it's all part of the journey. And we never really arrive at the end until maybe it's the end, or wherever that end is, or like wherever it ventures to. But yeah, just really trust this internal compass of yours and play. You just play and enjoy every moment. And, we can't be in fear. We can't be angry. We can't doubt if we're in gratitude, if we're in thanks. We can't have multiple feelings at the same time. We have one and we go to the other. They may rapidly um, like fly by, but we have one feeling or one emotion at a time. So make it gratitude. You just thanks for this moment. Thanks for who I'm being. Thanks for whatever this is on this journey that we're on, and just be fully authentic and disassociate from everyone else's experience of you and not take it personally.
Yeah. Oh, I love all of that. All of that. I love it so much. And I'd love to for you to share where people can follow you if you have something going on, for those that might feel really resonant with your journey and your story and some of the wisdom and teachings that you've shared. I'd love for you to share where people can follow you.
Yeah, I love hearing the journey that people are on and where they're at and their dreams and passions and what they're aspiring to, or it's like, this thing keeps getting in the way. I love these, like the conversations like we're having, is just get on a call with me and let's like, what's going on and what do you want and where are you going and what's your dreams. So they can reach me at soul dash genius.com, and there's a link there that you can schedule a call with me. And like after just we have some time together, if there's something that's you feel ready for, like something is nudging you, that intuition is saying it's time. It's time to not only just read the books, it's time to actually implement implement the processes. And I'd be glad to take people through that. I call it a soul breakthrough. So we actually really get at the core of who you are and what you want, and just really live into that. So breaking through all of those, domestications, this programming, the wiring, and get at that authentic part of who you really are and being vulnerable, right? That, like that vulnerability and the intimacy.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I
I
love it.
look forward to any of your listeners that need support, because so many people don't have that support, that well, maybe they have support, but it comes with judgment. It comes with expectation. So like, just needing someone who's got your back, really believes in you and can see your potential. I needed someone to see my potential, to know what I was capable of and what I'm
Yeah.
still capable of. So I'm here for you for that. And this has been such an honor. Thank you, Ashley Ann.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for this conversation, for all the beautiful things that came through that we were able to, yeah, just tap into. And I think it's, never, sometimes we just always hear things differently, when we're ready to hear a different piece. We're ready to go to that next layer. The
Yeah.
thing's going to show up, and I just know that this is going to be that conversation for those that are on this path and on this journey. And so I thank you so much for just this co-creation of a conversation that we created. I'm so grateful. So thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for listening. Make sure to leave a review and continue the conversation with me over on social media. And we'll see you in the next episode.